Sometimes you need to be walking with the Lord, and you can avoid some of the stuff, some of the trouble. Lord have mercy. You can avoid some of the trouble. Sometimes if you're walking with the Lord, even though you have to go through the valley of the shadow of death, you can go with confidence because you know I'm not walking alone. Jesus does something else. Jesus does something else. Jesus makes us light. The life he gives us becomes a light to others. And we begin to help them to see. That's part of the beautiful picture that these words convey. Just as the moon reflects the light of the sun and aids visibility in the night, the light of Jesus reflects off of us. And when his light reflects off of us, others who are walking in darkness will be better able to see. Somebody ought to be able to see Jesus because of you. If nobody can see Jesus because of you, then something is not necessarily wrong with them. Something is wrong with you. Can I get a witness yet? In the verses that follow verse 12 in that chapter 8, we're able to get a glimpse of the darkness of the people to whom Jesus was speaking. When Jesus said, I am the light of the world, the Pharisees challenged him. They challenged the validity of his assertion. When we look at them, we can see why every person in the world needs Jesus. We can see what holds people back from the light and allows them to spend their years in darkness. Two things keep people from opening their hearts to Jesus: ignorance and pride. Ignorance and pride. Often we're ignorant of the facts, and then we're guilty of the pride that refuses to bow to the facts and adjust to them. We don't know, and then when we do find out, we're too stubborn, we're too prideful to bow. Somewhere along the line, we've got to come to the realization that I can't fix it myself. I need some help. In verse 14, Jesus says, I know where I came from, but you have no idea where I came from. You have no idea. Now that's ignorance. At verse 19, Jesus says, you do not know me or my Father. You don't know me, you don't know my Father. And that's what Jesus is talking about. Ignorance is holding millions of people in darkness right now. Many people have never heard of Jesus. On the other hand, many of those who have heard him or heard of him have heard a distorted and unreal description of him. What they've heard about him makes him appear to be what he is not. It's important that we see the real Jesus. Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you. It's hot on. Let me tell y'all something. Jesus is not a vengeful character. Jesus is not waiting for you to mess up so he can zap you. The only people who are waiting for you to mess up so they can zap you is other self-righteous people. You be scared of these Christians who are too holy. That's who you need to watch out for. You need to watch out for the folk who act like they ain't never sinned. They ain't never did nothing wrong. And don't get me wrong, I'm not encouraging anybody to sin. I'm not promoting sin. I just have sense enough to know that when I would do good, evil is all zap you every time you do something wrong. I'm glad. Maybe your Jesus will. I'm glad that the God I serve, the Jesus that I'm hooked up with, looks beyond my faults, sees not only does he see my needs, but he blesses me in spite of my faults. I better get back to the picture because I done scared my young folk. Yeah. It's important that we see the real Jesus. That's the task. That's the task of the church. We are called to tell the story in its simplicity and in its beauty. Tell it in such a way that people can see who Jesus really is. Then he will draw people to himself. You ain't got to coax people to the Lord. You ain't got to trick folk to just lift him up. He has enough power in himself to draw people to him. The Pharisees accused Jesus of bearing witness to himself. They were rejecting him on the basis of a very narrow portion of the evidence about him. They looked at a few facts about him which they could find fault with. They never looked at the whole mass of evidence of who he was. That's the case with many people today. The Pharisees said to him, you're making these claims, but they are all from your own mouth. How can we believe you when you're the only one that claims this? How do we know that you're not a madman? Because the things you claim are really incredible. Yet you expect us to believe you when you are the only one who's saying these things. At first glance now, their arguments sounds reasonable. And we do need to be careful lest we're taken in by somebody who claims to be something that he or she is really not. We ought to have more evidence than the evidence of the person making the claim. But notice what Jesus says in his reply. First of all, he declares, even if these things are my own claims about myself, that's no reason for you to just outright reject them. Jesus is saying you need to, what you need to do is to look for more evidence. Don't reject just to be rejected. You know, some folk, you know what? You know how we are. I don't like it just because I don't like it. I don't have any real justification for it. I just don't like it. And because I don't like it, it's wrong. Do y'all know? Now I don't know if this is the devil in me or just my rebellious spirit. But do you know, other than the fact that I done got old and they feel good now, do you know why I insist on wearing tennis shoes so much? Because I have sense enough to know that there are some people who believe that it just ain't right for the pastor of a church to come to church on a Sunday morning leading God's people wearing my leg out. So I just do, and sometimes in the summer I wear blue jeans